All right, let's get in Manuel Bojorquez. He is at the eye of the storm from nearby Victoria, Texas. Manny, thanks for joining us. What are you seeing right now?
We're definitely seeing the worst of Harvey right now in Victoria, Texas, as the eye wall passes through here. You can definitely see all of the wind behind us, all the rain pouring down. This is the strongest sustained winds we have seen so far this morning. I want to point out to you something. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out, but we've been looking at this dealership behind us here, and at times you can see that the roof of it is starting to flap in the wind. That's a very dangerous sign, clearly, because it's an indication that there will likely be lots of structural damage here in Victoria as the eye and the eye wall of the hurricane passes through here. There is no power right now where we are. The hotel started to sway at about 2 a.m. local time when the hurricane started to make its way through here. And the big concern is not only all this wind that's pushing through right now, but of course all of this rain. 16 inches of rain for Victoria in just the last 24 hours. They're not expecting just inches of rain here. They are expecting to get up to 2.5 feet. And so the major flooding that will happen as a result of this hurricane is something that they will deal with for days to come here.
And Manuel, mandatory evacuations were ordered throughout this area as early as Friday morning. Have you seen people that have decided to stay behind and ride this out?
Yeah, we are aware that there are people who have decided to ride this out, and that is not what officials here wanted to see. We did, of course, speak with many people who decided at the last minute when they heard the rainfall totals and what the wind would do to get out of town. There are people in this hotel who decided to ride it out here because they didn't want to stay too far from their homes. So that's going to be a big concern. You got to remember that when officials say it's a mandatory evacuation, they won't force you to go. What they're saying is essentially you're now on your own if we can't get to you. If we can't get to you because of the conditions behind us, because we don't want to risk the lives of first responders. So you can imagine that there are situations happening right now, not only here, but throughout Texas, where people may be in need of help and people just cannot get to them. That was always the big concern going forward with this hurricane. And of course, that's why the governor declared a state of emergency for 30 counties days before the storm even hit, is to free up those assets to get search and rescue crews in position in some of those cities ready to go for when the conditions did improve, that they can go and try to get to some of these people who may be flooded out or who may have roofs that have collapsed on their homes. And again, we keep an eye on the storm out here because we have, as I mentioned, heard debris clanging through the air. We're in a bit of a protected area right now just for our safety and the crew's safety. But you're definitely getting a sense right now that once this clears and it's just rain, we'll be able to get a look at what kind of damage we have to this part of Texas.
And Manny, I'm curious, have you seen people carrying on? In other words, driving around? I know you said you're in a protected area there, but I'm always worried. I always worry about people who, for whatever reasons, decide that they want to head out in a storm like this. Perhaps they forgot something. Perhaps there's a necessary reason for them to be on the road, even though officials have said there is absolutely no reason for people to leave their homes during a storm with the power and devastation that a Category 4 hurricane brings.
I can tell you this, right now, I doubt that there's anybody out there because it's too difficult to even stand out there, and any high-profile vehicle will likely get knocked over. What we did see, though, is late last night when the storm started to approach and it was clearly a hurricane was happening, that there were still people driving about. I saw it myself just looking out of the hotel window, that there were still cars out there, and that's not what the officials here want to see, especially because when you're driving that late at night, what may appear to be a puddle could be a lot deeper, and that's where a lot of people get into trouble. But again, the situation here just continues to deteriorate, really, as this eye wall passes through. We had strong gusts throughout the overnight hours, and now it's just sustained, and you can see the trees really taking a beating. One appears way back there to have already kind of lost its footing there and come out of the ground. So this is just a small indication where we are of what you're likely to see once this passes.
Manny, let me ask you sort of a question that is away from what you're seeing on the ground there. We do know that Governor Greg Abbott asked the President of the United States for federal help. The President obliged on late Friday by signing a disaster proclamation for the state. Given that we don't yet have a full assessment of the damage that this hurricane has caused, what can we expect to see now that the full, as the President called it on Twitter, the full force of the government has been unleashed?
Well, of course, you can expect FEMA to get the situation started when it comes to any temporary housing that may be needed for victims of the hurricane. We already know that south of us, homes have been lost, and looking at some of the video feeds coming in, but also helping out with loans, anybody who wants to rebuild and that kind of thing. These are things that are further out, but the first thing they will have to do is the search of anybody who may be missing or needs help after the hurricane, get the search and rescue crews ready to go and underway. We do know the National Guard is here ready to assist as well. So those are the types of assistance that will be desperately needed here as soon as this all passes. But the big thing here is that it'd be great if this would just go on and get out of here after it passes through, and you could really assess and then continue to figure out how to help people recover. But the fact that it could linger for possibly days is the big problem. There's only so much recovery you can do when it's pouring down rain like it is right now, and the winds are even at tropical storm strength. So that's going to be the big concern going forward is, yes, the full force of the federal government has been pledged here, but how much can be done while the storm is still so active?
All right, Manny, and I'll just update our viewers that the President, in just the last couple of minutes, has again tweeted, closely monitoring Hurricane Harvey from Camp David. We are leaving nothing to chance. City, state, and federal governments working great together. Manny Bojorquez for us today in Texas. Manny, thank you very much. Stay safe.